What is going on, Guardians, and welcome to my humble abode. I'm just sitting here waiting on this update to download to my console. So I figured I've had a lot of requests, like hundreds of people asking me to kind of share my initial reactions to some of the changes that are coming to PvP with this update that's working on itself right now. So I figured I would go ahead and do that. So this is going to be pretty casual. I'm just going to read through some of the changes, and we'll talk about them as we go. I'm going to start here with the weapon changes. The very first thing listed in the weapon changes is the changes to hand cannons. So with hand cannons, one of the things that they're seeing is that there's a lot of overemphasis on range. And yeah, that's true. So I've actually been saying that for months now, that if you want a good, consistent hand cannon, it's got to be a hand cannon that has range perks on it. Now, the downside of that, which they're recognizing, is that means that a lot of people are sacrificing tons of other interesting perks on hand cannons that are now completely ineffective. People are not using them. So, because of that, they wanted to change how that range stat works. So, essentially, on the low-range hand cannons, they're reducing the amount of inconsistency with hit registration. So that's good. That's a good thing. Hand cannons are going to be a little bit more consistent now because of that, and you can mix and match some other skills and perks on the weapon now, which, hey, that's pretty cool. I like that. But they don't want it to be able to outperform a scout rifle at range. So they're sort of bringing up closer to you that drop-off of where your bullets are going to start doing less damage. So you're not going to be cross-mapping people consistently. A scout rifle is still going to do more damage at range than a hand cannon will. So I understand that change, and whatever. I'm pretty indifferent towards it, but overall, that's all right. That's not a bad thing. Another thing with the hand cannons that they did is that they increased the amount of initial accuracy. So your first bullet, that's probably going to register a lot more consistently. So they increased that initial accuracy. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Now, the big change is auto rifles. This is the one that there's a couple of changes to ARs across the board, and then to specific ones that's going to change things up a little bit for the better, definitely. So they reduce the damage of the high rate of fire autos by 6%. Doctrine of Passing, Arminius, those ones. So basically, the Doctrine is going to do less damage. It's going to require more bullets to kill. Hey, that's good, because in my opinion, and in a lot of other people's opinions, Doctrine is kind of running the Crucible right now. So in playlists where winning really matters the most, you're seeing a lot more Doctrines. Because the Doctrine has no downside. It is legitimately strong in all scenarios. So it's strong at close range, it's strong downrange. It's extremely consistent and easy to use. It's extremely easy to use. Unbelievably easy to use. So it just doesn't have any weaknesses. It doesn't really have any flaws. And so to have a weapon that's that universally outperforming other primaries is a big deal. Now, I've seen some people react to this and they're like, wow, they're ruining the primary game. You're making primaries weaker so that there's more emphasis on special weapons. No, they're making specific primaries weaker so that the other hundreds of primaries in the game can start to compete a little bit more consistently, and we can see some variety. That is a good thing. So Counterbalance is also getting a nerf, a slight reduction to its effectiveness. It's only a 10% difference. It's really not huge. You're not gonna get your Doctrine out today in 20 minutes. Well, by the time I upload this, you're already gonna have the update probably. But you're not gonna pull out your Doctrine and be like, wow, this thing is unbelievably just bouncing all over the place. That's not going to be the case. It's a very small difference. In changes like this, it might be a little bit noticeable, but most of what you're sensing is probably going to be that placebo effect. It's probably going to be more in your head than anything else. But the combination of the Counterbalance nerf and the damage nerf to Doctrine, hey, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking this is great for the Crucible. Anything that's going to introduce more variety is a good thing. So I think we're going to see a little bit more variety. I know that a lot of Trials Sherpas use Doctrines. A lot of the strongest teams out there in Trials of Osiris are using Doctrines with counterbalance on them. So that is a good thing. I like that. I'm going to skip over some of these changes just because they're honestly pretty irrelevant. But another one that I want to hit is the Defiance of Yasmin change. You guys know me, I use the Defiance. I love the Defiance. One of the things that I like the most about it is the combination of its handling time, which they do talk about that in this little update breakdown that they posted yesterday. But the combination of its handling speed and the lowest possible zoom value at 40 on a sniper rifle reticle. So those things together made me love the gun. So the reason why I'm a little bit like, I'm a little bummed about that is because obviously it's my favorite sniper. I understand why they did it. They brought the zoom value in line with all the other snipers in the game, but it made it lose a little bit of its individuality. And I mean, it's not a huge change. Okay, I know that, and I'm not raging. People are gonna be like, "Why are you raging about it? Oh, you're so butthurt." I'm not butthurt. I understand why they did it, but a part of me is a little bit sad that my baby is not unique anymore. The only thing that's unique about it now is the reticle itself. It still has really nice weapon handling speed with the injection mold on there, so it's going to ADS quicker, it's going to descope quicker, it's going to pull out and be put away more swiftly. So I like that, but I'm a little bummed about that. TBH. So now let's move over to the class balances. Talk about Hunters a little bit. Hunter, I'm looking over this and I'm like preparing to download at 78%. So I'm like, I better hurry this up because I want to get on here and stream. But anyway, so let's talk about these class changes. Just a TLDR, I would say looking at all of this, my initial reaction is that this is a net positive. Overall, this is a good change. Overall, this is a good change. Some really, really positive changes coming to some of the most powerful subclasses in the game. It's going to add a little bit more variety. But there's also some stuff in here I'm looking at and I'm like, okay. One of the things that they're wanting to do is just encourage people to use perks and abilities that aren't being used currently. One of those is looking at the gunslinger. They're going to want to try and encourage people to use the swarm grenades a little bit more. Cool. So they are increasing the arm radius by half a meter, which is that's decent. That's a decent buff there. And the damage is increased by 7%. So cool. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of those. I'm not sure. It'll really take some playing to find out how effective they are and what exactly they're good at. But I'm going to be honest and tell you guys, I don't use them. I haven't used them in probably a year and a half. So I have no idea what they're good at right now. I can speculate, but I'd have to play it out and really get a feel for them. So I may do that. One of the things I'm a little confused about is trip mines. I would be interested to see some of the data that they were looking at, the raw numbers that they were looking at. But I didn't think that trip mines were really a problem. I think that I'd be interested to see the numbers they looked at that made them say, you know what, we shouldn't let these stick on people anymore. So now they don't stick on people, which is interesting. I understand that they're trying to go for a very specific vision for what they want the hunter to be like. I mean, the name of it is a hunter, so the idea is that it's a trap. It's not something that you stick on somebody offensively. And I get that, but I didn't think it was a problem. So here's the thing that part really doesn't bother me that much, because I don't use them as stickies, really. I use them more for traps. But the thing that I am a little bit confused about and maybe a little bit bothered by, I mean, it's not something I'm going to rage about, but the thing that does kind of bother me a little bit is the damage decrease. So it's, for the most part, it's not going to one-hit kill anything anymore in PvP. So, I don't know. I'm not too jazzed about that. I think that the trip mine is well balanced because of the fact that it blinks flashing red like a giant sign that says, hey, I'm going to hurt you. So most people who walk into trip mines are just generally unobservant. And, I think that if they're going to decrease the damage of them, then maybe they ought to also decrease the visual cues to danger. Maybe tone down that flashing red light a bit, because now it's just going to be a flashing red sign that says, hey, I'm something that's probably going to hurt you, but probably not kill you. So most people shoot those down anyways, or they see them and they avoid them if it's not thrown at the really proper time or in a really good place. So I think that they really reduced the overall effectiveness of trip mines, which kind of bums me out. I didn't think that they were a problem personally. So that's one change. A golden gun, its base damage has been increased by 50% and an additional 30% against AI combatants. I don't play PvE, whatever, but PvP, a little bit. That's pretty decent damage increase. So it's going to one-shot heavily armored things. Less things are going to tank a Goldie now. So I get that. That's cool, I guess. I didn't think that Golden Gun was weak particularly, personally. But, okay, whatever. Deadeye now increases Golden Gun damage by an additional 30%. Okay. So basically just damage buffs across the board for the Golden Gun Super. I look at that and I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. If you say so. Throwing knife changes. Here's the thing that if I had to pick one thing out of this whole update that I'm just kind of like, what? It would be these gunslinger changes. I didn't think that gunslingers needed to be nerfed, but I'm not looking at the raw data that they're looking at, so that's a factor, I guess. But throwing knife base damage reduced by 10%. You're not going to be pairing the throwing knife with one shot from a scout rifle or a quick little burst from the hip with a pulse rifle or a quick little burst from an AR anymore. So it's pretty much reducing the effectiveness of throwing knives so that they work best with hand cannons, honestly, and nothing else. So that doesn't mean that they're not going to work with other weapons. Don't hear me saying that. But it's just making it so that they're going to work best with something that can do a lot of damage in one shot, aka hand cannons. So they're going to work best with hand cannons. It doesn't mean they're not going to work with other weapons, but hand cannons are obviously going to be your best bet there. And let's see, the Circle of Life. This is the thing that's interesting. I don't think that the damage reduction was necessary, personally, but they did change the way that Circle of Life worked. Because Circle of Life was a useless, silly perk. It was a waste of space on the Gunslinger subclass skill tree. And if you think otherwise, you're probably lying to yourself. That perk was bad. And it honestly just had no place in the game. People weren't using it. So obviously they don't want a waste of space. They want you to actually have to think and weigh the pros and the cons and the options that you have here. So Circle of Life is going to be changed now. Instead, it makes it so that throwing knife kills. This is important. Precision throwing knife kills reduce the cooldown of Golden Gun. So it's going to reduce the cooldown of your next super. I think that's actually kind of cool. That adds some utility to it. Something that you're going to look at that and you're going to be like, maybe I do want that. Now, it's nothing new. I mean, strikers have this ability. It's obviously not with a throwing knife, but with their melee ability, it reduces the cooldown of their next super. So this isn't something that's necessarily new. It's new to the Gunslinger. So that's kind of cool. It no longer extends the duration of Golden Gun, so that's changed. But it does have some downsides. It removes a little bit of your armor, just one armor value, so not much. But, so I get that maybe they're looking at that change and they're like, well, I guess we don't want people to only use Circle of Life, so maybe we'll just reduce the damage that throwing knives do by 10%, just to balance that change out a little bit. Okay, whatever. I sort of get that, but I still think the damage nerf was like, whatever. I don't think that's needed, but okay. Scavenger was really strong in year one just because of how much ammo opponents dropped in PvP. A lot of competitive people used Scavenger in year one. No one uses it in year two after all of the ammo changes in PvP. So people aren't dropping heavy ammo boxes. People aren't dropping special ammo. And the primary ammo that the opponents do drop on when you kill them, it's hard to see. It's white. So most of the time you just kind of run past it. No one actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and say that pretty much nobody goes looking around on the ground for white primary ammo. That just doesn't happen. So the Scavenger perk was kind of null and void. It only had some really minor effects in PvP. So they're changing how that works a little bit, basically increasing the amount of grenade and melee energy that's awarded to you when you pick up ammo by a third, by 33%. That's decently sizable. You may consider using that now, I guess. So, anyways, some changes to the Gunslinger. I don't think they were needed. I mean, I never got killed. Let me just say this. Since the April update, I can count on one hand the number of times I was killed by a throwing knife dot, the burn dot. It just doesn't happen that much. And I don't go into matches and consistently get killed with throwing knives and go, curse you throwing knives. You take no skill and you have so much aim assist. You have a little bit of aim assist, yeah. But you try going out there and getting 10 throwing knife kills in a single game. Let me tell you something. You're going to be at it for a while. Those things are not as easy to use as people might think they are. So, sometimes you get some clutch kills with them. It looks pretty cool. But across the board, Gunslinger Changes are the one thing about this update that I look at and I'm just like, huh? Okay. But whatever. They're trying to increase the sort of variety across the boards in this game. Keep things fresh. Okay, whatever. I get that. Moving on to the Blade Dancer, has some interesting changes. Blink. Using Blink now hurts your overall recovery stat, and the Blink Strike Lunge was decreased by almost half a meter. That's quite a lot of range. But, I don't know. I feel like with Blade Dancer, their melee is one of the things that they have going for them. So I kind of hate to see that change. I think that, honestly, Blink was pretty weak. Blink was pretty weak. It has been for a little while now. It's pretty much only used defensively. It can be used offensively, yeah. But the cooldown, the amount of time in between when you come out of your Blink and when you can actually fire your weapon or throw a grenade, something like that, is sizable. So Blink was already, in my opinion, a pretty poor choice for a jump ability. Yeah, it helps you get out of sticky situations better. Cool, I get that. And that can be nice, but I just don't like having a cooldown on my jump ability. You know what I mean? I want to be able to jump anytime I want to jump. So that's a little weird, if you say so. Blink Strike, the backstab, the whole front stab thing's been an issue for a while. And the melee patch, noticeable change. It's been better, but they're sort of reducing the chances of the front stab happening even further by changing sort of that hitbox or whatever of where that backstab happens. They kind of made it a little bit smaller. So, anyways, so those are some of the changes to Blade Dancer. There's some to the super specifically. These are the ones that I'm a little bit like, oh, okay. Base duration of Blade Dance is increased by 2 seconds. Cool. I'm okay with that. It's a pretty short super as it is. But one of the reasons they increased the length of time is because they changed how much energy swings take. So, there is the energy cost per swing when you miss is increased by 20%. So you're using more energy if you're using your arc blade swings to get around, if you're using it to catch up to somebody. So you're not going to be chasing people. You can still chase people down, but you're going to be using more energy to do it. So they're making it much more of a close range sort of a super. And the energy cost when you actually do hit something was actually decreased. So the more hits you get, the longer your super is going to last relative to if you were just swinging to catch up to something. So you're going to get more bang for your buck if you're getting hits in close quarters. But the good news is they increased the lunge distance by half a meter. So you can lunge half a meter further when when it locks onto something that you're going to lunge at and hit. So when it detects that there's a target there, it's going to take you further when you lunge. That's pretty cool. So overall, the Blade Dancer, I've seen a lot of Blade Dancers that are like fuming, who are like, my class was already bad. Why you do this? Make it worse. I don't think it's going to be a huge change, honestly. But I think that nerfing Blink, the Blink nerf was really minimal. But even so, I'm just kind of like, I don't think that was needed. But okay. So moving on to the Night Stalker. This is the game changer. This is one of the things about this update that makes me go, hallelujah. The Night Stalker. This in conjunction with the Sun Singer. These two subclasses have dominated the competitive environments in Destiny for a while now. Both of these subclasses have had their sort of moment in the sun, and it was a long moment. And I'm not sad that that moment is coming to a close, and we may start to see a shift in the meta to where other subclasses are going to rise to the top and be a little bit more advantageous. So, the Night Stalker has... Let me just say this. Most of the Trials, Sherpas, and streamers out there, emphasis on the word most Trials, Sherpas, and streamers use either Night Stalker or Sunsinger to date. So, it has, these two subclasses have been on top in that competitive 3v3 environment, and it's been that way for a while, and there are very specific reasons why those subclasses are on top, because their playstyle is so forgiving. Now, don't mishear me. I'm not saying that both subclasses are easy to use. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're a really skilled player and you master these subclasses, they're very forgiving. You can put yourself in harm's way with both subclasses and more easily bail yourself out or turn it into a positive than any other subclasses in the game, due to things like Shade Step, where you can negate the damage of some grenades, which Firebolts were OP, but you shouldn't be able to Shade Step out of them and have these moments of invincibility that... I won't say invincibility because that's not entirely true, but moments where something's not going to track on you like that, like a firebolt. So, yeah, they're getting hit, and I'm okay with this. And I know that some people have put all their eggs in one basket. They really hitched themselves to one subclass, and they're going to get hurt by this. Make no mistake. You're going to have to maybe relearn your subclass a little bit, or the way that you play it, change some of your habits and the ways that you approach engagements. But someone like me, honestly, I'm looking at these changes and I'm not going to be hurt by it because I play most of the subclasses every week. So I'm pretty loosey-goosey on everything in the game. So I'm just going to shift and, play some of the other subclasses, and my gameplay's not going to suffer for it. So you guys know this. I like to mix things up quite a bit. So, cool. Getting to the specifics, they changed the spike grenade. So the spike grenade is now going to do a little bit more damage. Cool. So the damage per pulse is increased by 100%. The total damage is unchanged. But it's just going to hit harder each time it hits, if that makes sense. So the spike grenade may be a little bit more viable. I kind of like them. I think they look pretty. Shadow Shot. Here's a big deal. Shadow Shot now applies the suppression effect on impact. That's cool. That's good. That's the way that it should have been initially. If you were to hit a Hammer of Soul Titan while he's mid-stride, dead in the center of the chest, super canceled. That is good. I think that the Night Stalkers needed that, honestly. To really be an anti-super subclass, hey, that's the cat's pajamas. That's really what we want there. So, smoke. The smoke grenades have been changed a little bit. Let me just read you what they say here. They say, the smoke ability received a number of modifications, making it less frustrating to victims, but also adding some utility against slower opponents. The package of status effects delivered on impact could be overwhelming, so we opened up more opportunities to escape. At the same time, the cloud will last longer, and the initial impact of a direct hit will hurt more. So, a little bit of balancing here. Some buffs, some nerfs. The impact damage is going to be increased by 34%. If you were to directly hit someone with a smoke grenade, going to do more damage. Cool. The impact suppression and damage over time duration has been reduced by 1 second. The jump suppression was removed from initial impact status effects. You can jump out of smoke now. Cool. Now, one of the things, I saw a lot of people who are Night Stalker mains talking about this, and they look at that and they're like, that's stupid, they can just jump out of my smoke? Yeah, but they gotta jump. That means that you're smoking them out, right? You're forcing them aerial, where they're a little bit more vulnerable. So, you can actually use that to your advantage. Hit them with a smoke grenade, and then as they jump up out of that cloud of smoke and they're up in the air, One of the things that you might be able to see now is maybe a combination where you throw smoke, switch to a sniper as they jump up, bow, shoot them out of the air. Hey, that could be a good combination. I mean, only time will tell. The dust has got to settle. It's going to take a few weeks for everything to settle and into a new sort of a meta. But that may be a strategy that you're going to start to see more. So, base smoke cloud duration increased by 1 second. Envenomed cloud duration increased by 1 second. Envenomed jump suppression removed. The vanish and smoke now doesn't add agility anymore, which I didn't see a lot of people using vanish and smoke, but whatever. The snare cloud duration increased by 1 second. I actually like snare. I've actually got a video that I'm sitting on right now. I'm just waiting on a friend of mine. He's got to do some commentary for the way that we're spinning this video, but it's going to be fun. But I've been using snare and predator a lot lately, and it's been hilariously fun. But anyways, those are some of the major changes to Night Stalker. The last one that's major that I want to hit, they did make some changes to like Courage of the Pack and Predator and Lockdown. Lockdown now makes the duration of your smoke longer. But Shade Step is another game-changing deal here. Shade Step has been moved to a single dodge on a 3-second cooldown, not 2 dodges on a 3-second cooldown. So 1 dodge every 3 seconds. You know what that's going to change? When you catch a Night Stalker out in the open and you dump half your magazine, and they're like, boop, boop, right? And now suddenly they're up in your grill with a shotgun or their primary, and you've got half a magazine to your name, and you're like, I gotta switch. And if you got a sniper, you're like, I'm kind of screwed. So Shade Step spamming is going to be changed a little bit. One of the techniques that you see people use is if there's a choke point, maybe a hallway or something, and maybe someone is on the other end sniping, sometimes you'll get Night Stalkers who are, right, they're going to Shade Step in, take a peek, and Shade Step out, because they get that third-person camera. They don't have to stop and look around when they come out of Shade Step. They just Shade Step, right? So that you pretty much can't snipe them unless you get lucky and get a headshot while they're rolling. So that tactic's no longer. You're pretty much just going to have to maybe Shade Step out and look and run back if there's a sniper, or you're going to have to maybe slide out. I think this is one of the things you're going to see more, is people are going to replace maybe that first Shade Step with a slide. So they're going to slide out of cover to peek and then Shade Step back. So you may see a little bit of that more. I think that the slide is going to maybe help save that strategy, the peeking strategy, but it's going to reduce the amount of Shade Step spam in open engagements. Hey, I like that. I'm cool with that. I'm definitely cool with that. Now that has another change that goes in tandem with it, and that's the Twilight Garrison, the other thing in the game that allows you to have a dodge ability. Now, this is the one that I look at it, and I kind of get it, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that was really necessary. The Twilight Garrison boost doesn't take you very far. So it's not a lot of distance traveled. But the difference between the Twilight Garrison boost and the Shade Step is that with Shade Step, when you come out of Shade Step, your feet planted on the ground, you can fire accurately. You can quick scope out of a Shade Step. But with the Twilight Garrison, you really can't. Because when you come out of a Twilight Garrison boost, you're still in the air. Okay, so your accuracy is still significantly lower. So using it to kind of boost up into someone's grill, it's still good if you have a shotgun. But in open engagements and open spaces, having 2 Twilight Garrison boosts didn't really give you an offensive accuracy advantage, right? So that's the difference between Shade Step and the Twilight Garrison boost that I see. I think that Shade Step overall is a much more advantageous ability than the Twilight Garrison boost. But I understand where they're coming from. And you know what? I can be okay with it. With some of the other changes that are coming with this update, I can look at that and be like, you know, I can live with that. So I think that I won't suffer too much for it. A little bit bummed about it. So only 1 Garrison boost per 3 seconds. I'm a little bummed, but we'll make it work. So other classes that got changed, so anything else that has a spike grenade, the changes are the same as they were on Night Stalkers. We already hit the Garrison. Talking about supers, we've got the Hammer of Soul increased damage against AI combatants. No big deal for me. I don't play AI. Fist of Havoc got an increase in damage. Nova Bomb, Storm Trance against the AIs. Whatever. I don't play PvE. Doesn't bother me. But the Sunbreaker got some changes. So the Hammer of Soul travel speed. When you chuck a hammer, travel speed is increased by a whole 1.3%. Okay? Now, maybe a smidge of a difference, but 1.3% is not much. Okay, don't look at that and be like, yes, we got a buff. Sunbreakers, 1.3%, that's really not a huge buff. So, nothing to get too excited about. Hammer Assault detonation radius was increased by 10%. Again, with the radius that already exists, 10% more, it's not that much. It's a little bit. Maybe you're going to get one more kill out of every, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but out of every 25 to 30 hammer chucks. So, I don't know. Not a huge buff, but a buff nonetheless. The Sunsinger, as we mentioned earlier, getting nerfed. Here are these specific changes, and these are really interesting changes. But the arming time for the Firebolt, basically the Firebolt really got hit. So the Firebolt, Viking Funeral, Touch of Flame, right? That build was the build for Sunsingers, okay? If you were playing anything else, you were going against the grain, and props to you. But the overwhelming majority of competitive, I will say this, you're not going to see a team win a tournament, a sweat tournament, without a Sunsinger using Viking Funeral Firebolt build. I could be wrong, maybe there's some that I've missed, but the ones that I've seen, there's always a Sunsinger with Viking Funeral Firebolts on. Same thing goes to like Trial Sherpas and Major Trial streamers. Like I said, most of them, emphasis on most, main Night Stalkers and Sunsingers. Sunsingers just have such a forgiving approach to engagements because the Firebolt can tag multiple people. It takes their recovery stat out of the game, makes them burn forever, so if they stub their toe, they die. Also, this is a grenade that's that powerful, but doesn't require much accuracy. Because the radius on it was pretty big, I always joke that you just have to throw it in someone's zip code to tag them. I know that's a bit of an exaggeration. But, for the most part, it's really forgiving in terms of where you place it. It can tag people at pretty nice distances. So, also because of that, it can take a 1v3 scenario, stack a dot on two of them, and leave you in a 1v1, or leave you in a situation where you just have to do some amount of damage. You could just basically blow on the guys who got tagged by it, and they're going to die. They're going to burn out and die. So, yeah, that grenade needed to be nerfed. People started joking and calling them skill bolts. Obvious dig. And you know where I stand on this. I totally agree. I think the Firebolts have been way too forgiving and way too easy to use. Maybe even a little bit cheap. But you don't hear me slinging hate at gamers for using them because it's not the gamer's job to balance the game. It's Bungie's. Well, guess what? They're balancing the game. So, Viking Funeral's getting nerfed. The Firebolt, the arming radius reduced. I'm sorry. That's not true. So the Firebolt, the arm time has been increased by 1/5 of a second. That's not much, honestly. But it's going to give you 1/5 of a second more to get out of there when you see it get tossed. Firebolt, it's decreased the radius by 1 meter. That is significant. That there is significant. It's got to be. They pretty much got to chuck it right at you in order to tag you with it. But the one of the biggest changes is that Viking Funeral itself has been changed about what exactly it does. So it doesn't extend the burn any longer. There's still going to be a burn, but it doesn't extend the burn. But the other change that comes in tandem with that is that now it will weaken targets that are afflicted by the burn. So if the burn is ticking, then the opponent is going to take 5% more damage from all sources, stacking up to 3 times. Now, the stack really is only going to affect PvE, I think. I don't think you're going to stack Viking Funeral burns on people in PvP. And if you do, they're probably already going to die because you're hitting them with a grenade and a Scorch melee or something like that. So they're probably already going to die. Or if you're going against a super of some kind. But for the most part, that's really only going to affect PvE, the stacking. But, so it's basically just making things take more damage when they're burning. Hey, I'm okay with that. I think that this is a fantastic change. So, you're going to see less triple Sunsinger teams. It seems like every card I do, you can't go a full card without running into a triple Sunsinger team. They're everywhere. It happens all the time. Just because it's such a forgiving subclass to use in elimination. So, that's being changed, and I'm all for it. Flame Shield, there's a little bit of a delay as to when that Flame Shield actually activates. So you're going to melee something, it's going to add a third of a second into how much time in between impact on melee and when that shield actually activates. Those are the changes. So, okay, TV, well, what do you think about when this dust settles? What are the strongest subclasses going to be? Here's my opinion. I think that if I were to pick the two subclasses that are going to be maybe on top now in a couple of weeks or a few weeks when the dust settles, you're going to see Voidwalker is going to be really strong and Striker is going to be pretty strong. Those are the two that I would put up top. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but that's my prediction. I think Striker and Voidwalker are going to be on top. So I'm excited about that because one of the things that they've said is they want to have seasons where everything gets its moment in the spotlight. And I'm all for that. I think that the Voidwalker is going to be a much more viable option across the board, in 6s and in 3s, because of how much emphasis has been placed on the Voidwalker's ability to regenerate health and regenerate grenade energy on kills. So I think you're going to see that represented a lot more because that makes the Warlock very versatile in active combat against multiple opponents. So that's going to be big. I think you're going to see more Voidwalkers. I think you're going to see more Nothing Manacles and Ramlock builds. Those are the two that I think you're going to see surfacing and being strong contenders. Striker as well. I know the Garrison got nerfed, but it's still going to have a single boost. And there's also a lot of other strong Titan exotics out there, like the Armamentarium. It's going to give you 2 lightning grenades. Lightning grenades are excellent for zoning. You're going to see a lot of Strikers out there. They can still Titan skate. They still have their Juggernaut shields. They still have Transfusion and Shoulder Charge. They got a lot of abilities available to them that can make them pretty wicked in the Crucible. So those are the two that I would say are probably going to be on top. I could be wrong, like I said. You're going to see me using them, and 2 months from now, when you see me using a Voidwalker and a Striker, and in before people say, why are you going easy mode, TV? Using Warlocks, Voidlocks, and Strikers. And I will respond to you, hey, you rewind to early year 1, and the overwhelming majority of the content on my channel is Voidwalker and Striker. I've been a fan of these subclasses for a long time. And now that they're maybe going to rise to the surface and have a little bit more of an advantage in the Crucible, does that mean I'm going to stop using them? No way. I love these subclasses. I'm still going to use them. And I'm still going to have fun doing it. And hopefully you don't mind. So, yeah, well, those are some of my initial reactions and some of my thoughts to it. I think it's a net positive. Overall, I think this is good. Good change. Good change. Keep things fresh. Keep the meta shifting. Keep people guessing. And introduce a new sort of season of exploration in the Crucible. I'm all for it. Now, feel free to go ahead and type in the comment section what you think. Agree with me, disagree with me, tell me to stop and get off of Bungie's you-know-what, because I've been told that a number of times too. I'll probably just go ahead and mute you, but you can say it. Anyways, so some of my thoughts, hopefully you appreciate them. If not, that's fine too. Feel free to disagree, but I always, please, as an encouragement to you guys, in the comment section, please always treat your fellow gamers with respect. I've seen the comment section get kind of salty sometimes. Let's tune that salt down. Okay? Disagree with each other and do it respectfully. And guys, hopefully I'll catch you in the Crucible.